Jax moved through the Peregrine's narrow corridors like a ghost, his steps absorbed by the old ship's padded flooring. The artificial gravity hummed faintly beneath the deck plates, steady, dependable, one of the few systems that hadn't failed him yet. Every morning he checked the same things: oxygen reclamation, water filtration, thermal regulators, gravity stabilizers. Every gauge read with intolerance. Every log showed green. It was almost disappointing, as though the universe had robbed him of an excuse to turn back. He ate in silence, slept in snatches. When he wasn't working, he floated, not weightless, but adrift in thought. Nova's voice would break the quiet sometimes, a disembodied presence in the recycled air. Oxygen production nominal. Thermal variance 3% above baseline. You appear bored. I prefer bored, Jax muttered, tightening a coolant valve. Bored means alive. She chuckled, an oddly human sound for a legacy AI. You define life as nothing going catastrophically wrong. Poetic. Efficient, he countered. Days passed. The hum of the engines became a heartbeat, the same rhythm he fell asleep to and woke with. He adjusted to the silence until he began to hear things within it: the subtle creak of old metal, the deep sigh of structural fatigue, like the Peregrine was tired of holding itself together. Sometimes, in the long hours, he wondered if he'd made a mistake. He'd traded a life of dull predictability for a mission so improbable it bordered on myth. If the girl existed, if Xylos existed, he might find redemption. If not, he'd die alone in an unregistered ship, his name scrubbed from every Dominion record. And maybe that was the part that scared him most: the idea of disappearing quietly, with no one left to remember he'd ever tried. Nova broke his spiral. Jax, may I ask something? Depends. Why did you say yes? He glanced toward the ceiling, toward the soft pulse of her presence light. Because I couldn't live with no, not after seeing her face. Nova didn't respond right away. The ship hummed between them, the sound of shared, uncomfortable understanding. The second week began like the first: quiet systems checks, recycled air, and the patient hum of the Peregrine. Jax had settled into the rhythm of it, the strange peace that came with routine in the middle of nowhere. He had even started sleeping longer, trusting Nova to keep her endless vigil. But then the tone of her voice changed. Jax, Nova said softly one morning, I need you on the bridge. Her voice lacked its usual dry humor. Jax wiped his hands on a rag and climbed the short ladder into the cockpit. The display screens glowed in dim amber light, the way they did when something wasn't quite right. Talk to me, he said. I've detected a drive signature on long-range sensors. Dominion military configuration. 72 hours old when the signal reached us. Jax leaned over the console, studying the faint trace pulsing at the edge of the scope. How far? Approximately 6.3 billion kilometers behind us. They're following our vector precisely. His stomach sank. How the hell could they know our jump path? Statistically improbable, Nova said, but not impossible. They could have extrapolated from the LCK access. The Dominion audits everything. A single packet of unauthorized data might have led them to us. Jax sat in the pilot's chair, staring out at the field of drifting stars. They're faster than we are. Yes, Nova confirmed, by roughly 18% at sublight. If both ships maintain current trajectories, they will intercept us approximately 12 days before the Slingshot. Silence filled the cabin again, thicker this time. Jax could almost hear the math grinding behind Nova's words. What are our options? Limited, Nova said. Hyperdrive is offline for cooldown. Another jump would collapse the field coils. That leaves only sublight modification. You could reroute power from secondary systems to the main engines. He exhaled slowly. How much faster? 10%, maybe 12%. Enough to delay them, not enough to escape. Jax rubbed his face, feeling the grime from long hours of work. That's not enough. I know. The AI didn't sound apologetic. She sounded aware. Over the next hours, Jax tore into the Peregrine's guts again. Heat exchangers, plasma feeds, magnetic couplings. He stripped everything he could spare. Gravity stabilizers went first. The ship felt lighter, looser, the artificial pull underfoot flickering like a dying heartbeat. He rerouted the heat regulators next, forcing the ship to run hotter. Sweat beaded on his skin, condensation misting across the cold metal of the console. "Temperature variance rising," Nova warned. "I know," Jax muttered, tightening the last coupling. "We need more speed." He engaged the new configuration. The ship lurched, groaning in protest. The numbers jumped, velocity up by 19%. The deck vibrated, a low animal growl that resonated through the hull. "Efficiency increase confirmed," Nova said. "However, sustained operation at this power level will reduce life support longevity by 30%. Jack slumped back in his chair. "We'll live, just not comfortably." That's a generous assessment. 3 days passed under the new strain. The air grew heavier with heat and the faint metallic scent of overworked systems. Jax moved slower, his muscles aching, skin slick with sweat. He'd wake up dizzy, sometimes with a faint copper taste in his mouth. "You're showing early signs of heat stress," Nova said one evening. "I recommend rest." "Rest is for people who aren't about to be vaporized," Jax said, half smiling. Nova hesitated. "There is one more modification possible." Jax stopped mid-motion. "I'm listening." "You could divert partial oxygen recirculation flow into the plasma boosters. It would increase thrust by another 3 to 5%. "That's suicidal." "Not immediately," she said carefully. "It would lower breathable air efficiency by roughly 20%. You would experience hypoxia, nausea, disorientation, but you would survive." Jax leaned back, staring at the dull ceiling panels. "You're telling me to make myself sick." "I'm telling you that if we do not, the Dominion will reach us before the Slingshot." He let out a quiet laugh. It wasn't amusement, it was resignation. "You know, Nova, I've lost everything because of this ship. My home, my name, my life. If this is what it takes to make it count, then I'll do it." "Jax." "No, you said it yourself. The girl has 6 months. I can be sick for a few weeks." The AI didn't respond for a long moment. When she did, her voice was softer than he'd ever heard it. "Then I'll monitor your vitals continuously, and if you die, I'll kill you." Jax smiled faintly despite himself. "Fair trade." He reached for the control interface and began rerouting the oxygen flow. The Peregrine moaned as though it understood the cost. Outside, invisible in the black, the Dominion ship burned steadily closer. Its engines a silent, distant sun. The black hole system appeared on sensors like a heartbeat, faint pulses of gravitational distortion rippling through space. Even at this distance, the readings made Jax's stomach twist. "Target confirmed," Nova said quietly. "System designation, Helios Rift." "One primary singularity," she continued. "Mass 12 million solar units. Event horizon radius approximately 6 astronomical units." Jack stared at the holographic projection, an abyss rendered in cold light. Even the digital map seemed afraid to touch it. They had been running for weeks. The Dominion ship had closed to within striking distance twice, each time falling back just enough to remind them it was still there. Now, the chase was ending. They were almost at the rift. "The Dominion cruiser will enter firing range in 36 minutes, Nova said. Her voice was unnervingly calm. "Perfect," Jax muttered, strapping into the pilot's chair. "Let's give them a front row seat." The cockpit lights dimmed as the Peregrine's engines adjusted to the gravitational shear. "Course locked," Nova said. "Slingshot trajectory calculated, though I should remind you that this model has not been tested." "Of course it hasn't," Jax grumbled. "Why would it be? We wouldn't want to make things easy." His hands hovered over the controls, knuckles white. He wasn't a pilot. He was a mechanic pretending to be one, and it terrified him. "Nova, if this doesn't work—" "It will," she interrupted. "Confidence from an algorithm, that's reassuring." "Not confidence," she corrected. "Probability. 62% survival rate. That's supposed to make me feel better." "It was higher before you started talking." He shot her hologram a glare. The AI's faint blue shimmer flickered beside him, hands folded as if in prayer. Outside, the Helios Rift filled the viewport, an impossible sphere devouring starlight. It was both motionless and alive, tendrils of glowing plasma spiraling inward like veins of dying fire. The beauty of it made Jax's skin crawl. "Default text engaging slingshot algorithm," Nova said. Her tone dropped, all humor stripped away. The Peregrine's hull began to vibrate, metal shrieking as the gravitational field seized it. Jax's stomach lurched as the artificial horizon twisted into madness. "Manual stabilization required," Nova said. "Of course it is." He gritted his teeth, gripping the yoke as warning lights flared red. "I'm not a damn pilot, Nova. I'm going to get us both killed." "You're the only one with hands," she replied. "Do try not to waste them." The ship rolled violently. Instruments went haywire, screaming their confusion at the impossible physics around them. Through the distortion, a blip appeared on the scanner. "Nova, what is that?" Her tone faltered. "It's a ship," she whispered, "caught on the event horizon." Jax looked out the viewport and saw it, a freighter half swallowed by the black hole's edge, frozen mid-destruction. It shimmered like a mirage, time stretched into eternity. For an instant he swore he saw figures moving inside. "Are they alive?" he asked softly. "Technically," Nova said. "They're trapped between moments, alive and dead, forever." Jax's throat tightened. He couldn't look away. "Focus, Jax!" Nova's voice snapped him back. The controls fought him like a living thing. The Peregrine groaned under the pressure, every bolt crying out in protest. The stars ahead stretched into ribbons of light. Gravity warped around them, tearing space like paper. "Now, Nova." "Executing jump trajectory correction. Hold steady." The ship plunged into a halo of blue fire. Jax screamed against the crushing force, his vision fracturing into streaks of light and blackness. The Peregrine twisted around the singularity, engines howling in defiance. Then, silence. The black hole fell away behind them, shrinking into a distant, smoldering star. The stars ahead returned, bright and sharp, as the Peregrine leveled out. They were alive. Barely. Jax slumped in his chair, trembling. "Status?" Nova's voice came through softly, almost reverently. "Trajectory confirmed. We're on course for Xylos." He exhaled, eyes wet. Outside, the cosmos burned quietly. Behind them, the rift swallowed the Dominion ship whole. "As the ship curves around the singularity," Nova said quietly, "they vanish into the event horizon's light." The viewport filled with white, then black. Please like, and more importantly, subscribe so you don't miss the next installment of The Peregrine. Thank you for watching.